Pilates. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, my patrons, Clayton, Ruby, Stephanie, and Jonathan, as well as anyone interested in trying to survive and thrive as a Pilates instructor or student. 3 titles today, or topics, in my broadcast, and title number 1 is just the word tension. Tension. T-E-N-S-I-O-N. And I've been in workshops, I've paid for workshops where tension was always used as a bad thing. And even when I ask, what's the opposite of, what's the good part of engaging? If tension is bad, what else is there? Or how do you describe the engagement of musculature and what that produces? So, within the MMP point of view, that stands for Michael Miller Pilates, it's a point of view, tension is a good thing. In my notes I said tension that relieves stress is good. Tension that exacerbates stress is bad. So see, oh man, it always comes back to this gravity and the fact that as human beings we're fish trying to swim through an ocean of air. We're made of water, and in the load of our body, in the load that we carry, that's mostly water, we do that through air. So when it comes to MMP, tension is a very good thing insofar as, where does tension come from? I mentioned, I think of it as you have muscles, and if a muscle were to engage, right, it would just engage and the ends of the muscle would go towards each other. But we know that muscles are attached, and it's from being attached that the engagement of the muscle creates a tension that is individual to the muscle and collective throughout the body, part of the collective musculature that the body has the capacity or capability of engaging. So when muscles engage, it creates tension. And that's how we move through space. So what is the target of tension? Why are we talking about muscles contracting and creating tension? When all those muscles act as uniformly as they can, right? It reduces the load of the body in space because of the contribution of the muscular tension from ideally uniform participation. And the more you reach toward uniform engagement, the more uniform engagement you get, the lighter you are in space. Just the way I look at it and the way I phrase it. You know, I don't have equations and math and data to prove that. But I can certainly stand dynamically with as much of my musculature engaged, ready to play dodgeball, versus standing there with as little musculature and involvement as I need to just stand there. See what I'm saying? And be much less likely to dodge the ball because I'm less dynamically engaged. And therefore heavier in space with the muscles that are currently engaged in either maintaining my position standing or in whatever I'm doing. And as I've said before, it's just my assertion. I know the only thing I have to back it up is my own experience in my body and the results I get as an instructor. It's through oppositional rotation between axes that the body is capable of rotating around that you distribute the load. And that's just because of the physics of the nature of the curve, the nature of the dynamics of oppositional rotation between axes. It's way deeper than I understand, but I can point to what I recognize as fundamental participation of the biology in the physics in which it exists. So, to get to whole body requires core new tension. That's my assertion. You don't get to whole body without really engaging in core new tension, because that's the most efficient way to distribute the load of the musculature you're after using uniformly. Okay, I think I said that pretty well. That's my opinion. Let's move on. My number 2 title is Heaven and Earth. And heaven and earth, to me, is a martial arts phrase. Insofar as when you move through space, if this is a body, you move through space, and you're moving through space vertically. You know, you hold heaven above earth, and you maintain alignment as you move through space. I heard from a patron of mine that their background in a particular martial art talked about tucking in the pelvis and holding the chin tucked in, and he's reflecting on or commenting on the similarity between core new tension and that. So, and then where's my tape measure? See, I go looking for stuff, and then, here it is. Here it is. Alright, so, from number 1, we're talking about tension. And tension is when you how do you create that? Well, in this instance, it takes these 2 points. But how does the body do that? Well, it has to create oppositional rotation between axes in order to get this elongation. The elongation comes from the need for what's coming out of the depth of the grip presses the 2 endpoints away, the two axes of rotation. So in the body, when you make rotation against the hips, right, that engagement necessarily causes distance between the two. If this is a grip at the shoulders and this is a grip at the hips, as you deepen the grip, the wrist gets longer. It's imagery, right? But hopefully it's reflective of the reality I'm pointing to. The difference between tucked in the hips and engaged in the hips in a neutral spine is the same as a grip in the wrist. If we're playing Indian wrestling and this is my grip and this is my opponent's grip and they have me like this, which grip is stronger? Do this, try it yourself. Try it with somebody else. Be careful. I was in Switzerland teaching a mat class workshop to a women's boxing club. And one of their instructors was a male, very bigger than me by a lot. And I wanted to show this issue when you stand up and you do this way with the person right in front of you. When I grew up, to me that was called American Indian wrestling. And you can do it laying on your back with legs going opposite directions, and whoever hooks the other leg and sends the person flying wins the contest. Indian wrestling. And of course, whoever takes a superior grip and forces the person to say, ow, 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 I give. There's a place where your hips belong that gives you the strength of the grip at the hips, just like the strength of the grip in your hand. And to that point, being tucked under and chin tucked in is a distortion of the ideal that you're after. And I tend to think in pursuit of the ideal you get better results. Maybe distortion, in any event. Okay, where are we here? Okay, so is this lined up right according to hips and shoulders? Right? Okay. Now, the point I want to make about the hips, in this engagement is not that in the engagement you go into it. Pilates people know this. It's this old, tuck versus neutral spine, and what do you teach and when do you teach it and why do you teach it and if you teach either at all, and that whole debate. The point is you're stronger in neutral spine to the extent you have a depth of grip at the hips. Now, the tuck shortens the distance between the 2 points. And you don't want the tuck. What you want from both, what you want in both is to grab or to take control at the end point, right? And through the engagement, participate in this, because you understand the physics that's going on in the biology of your body. Insofar as you've got oppositional rotation between 2 points, for starters, and that at the hips, the point I was trying to make is that at the hips. The engagement isn't a tuck, it's going further down. Okay? So here is a tape measure. Why does that happen? I let go and it disappears. Why does that happen? Because there's a spring in there, right? And what does that spring provide? Tension. So, do I have this arranged right according to the way the coil goes? Yes? See that? Right? So, it's not about here, like that. It's not about this. It's about going deeper into your grip, and in so doing, going down longer. Okay? Visual aids are always tricky not to go other than where you're trying to idealize in what I'm presenting to you. So I hope that you pick that up and put together what would be more difficult to demonstrate visually. So yes, heaven and earth, but see, just like, okay, in stomach massage on the reformer, a chin really tucked in like that is compressive, not elongating. And the elongation comes from what? Oppositional rotation between the two axes. I mean, so it was fun to have feedback that what I'm saying made sense from a perspective out in another modality, right? Like karate, which, I studied for a while, and the whole idea of heaven and earth. Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Because that means what? What does heaven and earth represent? Alignment. And how do you get to alignment? How do you get to alignment? You create tension. So it's through the tension of oppositional rotation between axes that one finds and has a sensation of alignment. And by being aligned, what effect does that have on us in gravity? A lack of stress. One thing I point to. I'm sure there's other reasons, and I don't mean to speak for martial arts, other than, oh yeah, heaven and earth, how you move through space, and so doing, maintaining verticality. Why? Because a lot of reasons from martial arts perspective, but alignment key in Pilates, and that in the awareness of core nu tension, you know how your body is interacting or how it's engaging itself to make alignment sensational. So let's try to cover number 3. Number 3 is about the tree exercise. And the tree happens on the short box on the reformer. The tree happens on the ladder barrel. The tree happens over a ball. So when I describe this, I'm describing the MMP tree, okay? And as such, it's a pursuit of an ideal. And so well, I broke it into 3 parts, but the tree as a series of things where the name of it gets from the middle thing, the warm-ups. In the warm-ups where you're sitting up straight, so you're aligned, hips, shoulders, and ears are lined up. Off of that, you're articulating at the knee, and then articulating at the metatarsal, and then maintaining as straight as you can, trying to articulate whole leg toward body. In MMP, the first half of the exercise is the hips, the shoulders, and the ears maintaining alignment in space while you try to articulate the leg off of what you're holding as a line. That then turns into laying back over the short box or the ladder barrel with your, all this with a student. Do this with a teacher. Have insurance. Sign a waiver. The point being that the leg and the body change places, and it's the hips, the shoulders, the knees, the ankles, and the metatarsals that seek vertical, while the body from hips to ears articulates, meaning rolls down. And when the body has rolled down and the leg is vertical, that's the shape of the tree where the progression gets its name from. Because then when leg is vertical, the body comes up and comes down the leg, striving to maintain vertical in the articulation of going up and down it. Okay. And then having done that, to me there's a series of stretches that starts out wide, which is not in close going out away from center, but it starts out wide and a stretch out to the side, comes out of that and up and pulls across to like bring to more conclusion or bring to center, that pull across. And then convert that by bending at the knee and leaning forward to take it into the hip that way. So the tree is a leg vertical and going up and down, climbing up and down the tree. The ideal is that hips, knees, ankles, and metatarsals are vertical while the rest of the body climbs up and down. And that follows the warm-up of holding the body vertical and articulating the leg off of the vertical you're trying to maintain. So in that regard, the tree is all about alignment. The MMP tree is all about alignment. First in the hips, shoulders, and ears, and second from the hips, knees, ankles, and metatarsals. So in my summary, because of this, alignment is really important to get out of pain. I don't know how to make it, that was a painful expression, but to get out of pain. The better you are in Pilates, the broader spectrum of interest you will have from people that want whatever you've got. And for me that has been confusing at times and only survivable, I think, as well as perhaps thrivable. Used whatever I knew in the abstract to try to apply to the reality that was in front of me. Meaning knowing that I was a Pilates instructor and that I'm aiming for this experience and that there's progressive patterns of movement, and to whatever extent, I pursue that and challenge loading and alignment is the way out of pain, because alignment is about avoiding stress. Stress. I want to look up their sign language for stress. And in the pursuit of alignment, you get uniform engagement because it takes oppositional rotation between the 2 points that creates that tension from which you get the feeling of alignment. And the uniform distribution of load that oppositional rotation between axes gives you. So the whole joy of being Yoda and sending your client into the cave of their own sensation, to be able to listen to a difference of sensation and find more control from the effort. Now, if it takes coordination of being, thinking, and observing to do that, that's the essence of what I do, I think, as a Pilates instructor. Okay? And I encourage you to at least see yourself partially through the understanding that this gives you, or this point of view has, so that whatever else you hang on to it, like ornaments on a tree, Pilates itself within MMP has an essence of its own. And here I am talking about Pilates when really this whole thing has been about core nutention. And so for me, the evolution of the 2 things rather than I'm just teaching you one thing, where there's just one thing to get from me. You want alignment to get out of pain, and that takes lining up tension between 2 points to where it's sensational, and in being so allows you to develop the depth of your grip so that you move through heaven and earth like a fluorescent tube. Here's my comparison to Pilates being whole body. See the phases? That's like diving into Pilates, going, and then heaven and earth. The more fluorescent you are, the lighter you are in space, because you're not tilted, having to hold the load in something other than an optimum way of engagement, which is uniformly. No light, no motion. No tension, no motion. As Yoda, where do you make it sensational? Well, through the wrists, alignment through the wrists, and the pedipole, and if not that, springs hung from above, perhaps a springboard, the end of a Cadillac, but spring tension that allows you to figure out where in your wrist is alignment. And I'll have a hint for you it's really between these two knuckles. Okay? So the alignment, you put your wrist under tension, it'll be flat across the top and through these first two knuckles. And so there you're applying tension to make alignment sensational. And you're being Yoda saying, there's tension there, figure out for yourself where the alignment is truest. And if you're a good instructor, you're setting them up for success rather than backing them up in some way or distracting them from what you're really after. And that's who you are as a Pilates instructor. Demonstrating core new tension from ears to shoulders is the easiest thing you could ever do. Metatarsals, I think, take a while and maybe never be adapted by you or everybody. But I think clearly, someday the evidence will show, not just my sensation, but the evidence will show a more uniform distribution of the musculature by working off of the endpoints instead of some other means of muscular engagement that would, to me, come off more as a clinch or something less dynamic than working off of endpoints. Then using the tension that comes off of endpoints to distribute the load. So it was fun getting an email talking about the similarities in core new tension to other modalities and how how core new tension, how you're aware, the awareness of biomechanics, the biomechanics of core new tension, gives you imagery that engenders the manifestation of the engagement that you're after. Of special note might be how the ribs get to the glutes. How do the ribs get down here to the glutes? What is this connection? What connection do I fly to get from here to there? I'm making a joke now. I fly the airline called the TVA because I saw a workshop once totally devoted to the TVA. And it just stands out to me like an airline. And it's easy to refer to it as an airline because you use it to get somewhere. You use it to get the connection from the rib cage into the pelvis. You fly TVA. Alright, so life can't live forever. Read between the lines and see behind the curtain. Evaluate points of view. And isn't it great that you not only have different points of view within the Pilates world, which seems to have too many in a way to me, or no very little way of distinguishing one from another, but to other modalities. Oh, because in my notes I was saying as above, so below, so below, as above. That's this whole heaven and earth thing, is that what's true at one level is also true at another level. There's integrity to the experience, I would say, of life and living. And that's, see, it's not a Nightmare on Elm Street where you're built up all normal and then something out of the ordinary happens. Well, that's the nightmare. But the truth of the matter is there's continuity in time, and there's a limit to the spectrum of what manifests, even though you know don't know what's going to happen. And I'm sure that holes in it that I would disagree with. Add 2 and 2. Direct your thinking. And Geist.